You have put out some great tweets on all of this. It's been very insightful. CRA has been working hard to also help Texas kind of push back. An amicus brief was filed in the Fifth Circuit. Can you please tell us, for our audience who aren't attorneys, what this means and what you guys are looking to do?
Sure, and thanks for having me on the show. And I'm not an attorney, so if I think I can grasp it, I'm hoping that others will too. We've been working on this idea of a state declaring an invasion. So under Article 1, Section 10, Clause 3 of the United States Constitution, there exists basically a self-help clause of the Constitution that says that if the federal government isn't upholding its Article 4, Section 4 duties to secure the states, then governors have powers to then step in and do what they need to do so. And the language is, to repel an invasion or prevent imminent harm. And I would certainly argue that, cartels fit. Thomas Jefferson thought that this power enabled states to combat smugglers. Sam Houston thought it empowered the state of Texas to combat cross-border Mexican bandits at one point in our history. So this power exists. Biden is not actually using his authority to secure the border. He's intentionally not. And so we would argue that this is in play. And so this is what we've been asking since we developed this legal theory a couple of years ago now. Myself, Ken Cuccinelli, and some others developed this theory of how to get this done using a constitutional authority and to create this friction with the feds. That's now finally coming to fruition. And we were, really happy to see Governor Abbott unequivocally say that what he's doing on the border is authorized under Article 1, Section 10 of the United States Constitution. So he's invoking his authority. The Supreme Court has not yet litigated this. The Fifth Circuit has not yet litigated this. But importantly, it matters, what are they doing with this authority? So right now they're putting up razor wire, and that deters, but it doesn't repel. And so migrants will just go around the wire or cut through it. And then once they're through, the state of Texas still processes them, turns them over to the feds, and then they get released into the interior. A new law will come into effect soon where Texas will start arresting for criminal trespass, but there's not enough prison or jail space. So that's not a permanent solution. Once those spots fill up, they'll again turn them over and release them into the interior. The next step to this is we need Governor Abbott to actually take people who are illegally crossing between ports of entry and put them back across the river. And this is the important action that needs to take place. Once Governor Abbott does that, under an Article 1 constitutional authority, that precedent, if you win, changes the entire border situation forever. It means that it doesn't matter who the president is. States can then take it upon themselves to lock down and secure their borders, protect their citizens. That's the precedent we need to get to. So Abbott is taking some strides towards that. Applaud it. But it also needs to be legally defended. And so the Fifth Circuit filings by the state of Texas so far don't list this. They don't actually defend the constitutional argument. They're defending on other grounds. So we need the state of Texas, the Attorney General's office, to expand the defense of Abbott's actions to encapsulate the Article 1 powers. Because if we can win this at the Fifth Circuit, win it at the Supreme Court, border security, this will be the biggest border security win in the history of the country if we can get that done. It's a big deal. And that's why you're seeing so much agitation from both sides in moving forward here. And of course, the left is going to say this is rebellion. It's not rebellion. It's a constitutional authority that the governor's acting lawfully. And then the other argument that you'll see out there is that, well, this is immigration law is allowed only for the federal government. Well, maybe not. I disagree with it, and you can litigate on those grounds. But a U.S. constitutional authority is superior to any immigration issue. So what we're arguing on the border right now is not immigration law. It's a constitutional authority. So we're not saying things like deport illegal crossers. We're saying repel, remove and repel, because deportation is an immigration law term. And we're not talking about immigration law. We're talking about a U.S. constitutional power. So there's a lot going on the border, a lot of great developments, but we need to see more action from the governor, and what we encourage him to do so, and we need to see more action from the state of Texas on defending it on those legal grounds.
Yeah, I know a lot of us have been critical of Governor Abbott regarding his response to all of this. Now it seems to be like he's stepping it up, but he's had 3 years so far. So it's refreshing to see. I hope he does take the steps that you recommended. I want to talk about a tweet that came up earlier today, and I chuckled a little bit when I saw it. It came from Robert Francis O'Rourke. You might remember him as Beto O'Rourke. That's what he goes by these days. But ultimately, he's telling Joe Biden to federalize the Texas National Guard. He says it's possible that there's some legal groundwork to all of this. Wade, is this something that you've heard of before? Because he kind of caught me off guard with this argument, and I haven't heard this one yet.
Yes, we anticipated that the Biden administration might do this, and we've laid out, I have another tweet out there that walks through how the state of Texas can combat this. I'd need the Constitution in front of me. And the statute, the relevant statutes in front of me, actually. There's 3 conditions in which a president can overrule a governor and federalize the National Guard against the wishes of a governor. Mm-hmm. The interesting part of this is one of those is that there has to be an invasion. So, in other words, Biden would have to admit that there's an invasion at our border, which justifies then what Governor Abbott is doing. Mm-hmm. So that puts them kind of in a catch-22. There has to be, there's other conditions that can be met, like they don't have enough personnel to enforce the law. Well, they do. They're intentionally not enforcing the law. And then there's, another clause, and none of them actually are satisfied. So we would encourage Governor Abbott and the state of Texas to ask the president, under what grounds is he federalizing? Because if he's saying there's an invasion, then they're in a catch-22 at the federal level at that point. And if it's another reason, I don't think that that will withstand actual scrutiny. And then if it's on those grounds, I think that the state of Texas should sue. But I think the state of Texas is in a really good position to resist the federalization of their National Guard units, and also make Biden kind of have to admit that there's a problem on the border in the middle. So, because it all pertains to securing the country, and either way, no matter how you slice it, Biden's going to have to admit that there's a monumental problem on the border, which they've been unwilling and resistant to do so far.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that he's changed. I mean, if you look back at old sound bites of him previously from years ago when he had, when he was sane, I guess I would say, he used to be against these types of things. And it's also strange because, former President Barack Obama deported the most illegal immigrants, 3 million during his time in the White House. I want to play this clip from Joe Biden back in 2007, because I think it's telling. It's him pretty much being honest about the word sanctuary city, the term sanctuary cities, and what it actually means here in the United States. So we're going to play this clip, and I'm going to get your reaction on the other side of it.
Would you allow these cities to ignore the federal law regarding the reporting of illegal immigrants and, in fact, provide sanctuary to these immigrants?
The reason the cities ignore the federal law is the fact that there is no funding at the federal level to provide for the kind of enforcement at the federal level you need. Pick up the New York Times today. There's a city not far across the river from my state that imposed the similar sanctions. And what they found out is, as a consequence of that, their city went in the dumps, in the dumpster. Stores started closing. Everything started to happen. And they changed the policy. Part of the problem is you have to have a federal government that can enforce laws. This administration has been fundamentally derelict in not funding any of the requirements that are needed even to enforce the existing law.
So, Senator Biden, yes or no, would you allow the cities to ignore the federal law?
No.
Okay.
Oh, how times have changed, because he ignores federal law all the time. Your reaction to that clip?
Well, I mean, this shows you just how radical the left has become. Joe Biden and most of the modern Republican Party has shifted way left. And then in that vacuum, you've seen most of the Republican Senate has moved into being basically liberal, moderate Democrats. And they sound like what Joe Biden sounded like 20, 30 years ago. They say the right things, but they're not actually going to stand up and fight for it. And, it shows you the entire shift. And we need Republicans to stand up, conservatives to stand up and actually push back against this administration and not just try to become Democrat light. But you know, who do you have a negotiating partner with when there's no longer this last vestige of what you would consider conservative Democrats? The entire Democrat Party has become woke. They're all woke Marxists, and they have no interest in actually having an honest conversation about securing the border. So this is why I think, you know, and by the way, there's not even the pretense of trying to fix the border. They don't want to fix the border. They intentionally want to have it wide open. They intentionally want to have millions of people who have to come here who do not believe in the founding of the United States, who are not educated and steeped in its traditions and values and mores. They want them to come here to remake the political landscape of this country. And by the way, it's not a controversial thing to say that because they admit this. They admit this all the time that that's what they're trying to do here. And so they're bringing people with a different political ideology. It's not about race or sex. It's about people with different political ideology. And so we exist in this political environment where Republicans think that they're going to make deals with Democrats. They're not. And so this is why states have to stand up boldly and actually resist the actions of the Biden administration and do so with novel ideas and using constitutional authorities. You know, red state stronghold policies, as I call them, and think of ways to start pushing back and actually creating moments like we're in right now, where you have a state creating a point of friction with the federal government, and it's a little bit of a standoff. And this is not a war. We're not on the precipice of a civil war, but we are on the precipice of states reasserting their authority and standing together and telling the federal government to go pound sand, that they're going to do what they need to do to secure their own borders and their own communities, especially when the president of the United States will not.